Retirement Tips Radio is brought to you by Business RadioX, the voice of business in your community. Currently serving over 25 markets, the Business RadioX network is growing fast. We're teaming up with retired execs and established entrepreneurs to support and celebrate local business leaders. If you'd like to make additional income while making a difference, discover more at brxteam.com. Now, here's your host.
Lee Cantor here, another episode of Retirement Tips Radio, and this is going to be a good one. Today we have with us Anthony Calabrese with Beacon Wealth. Welcome.
Hi, glad to be here. Thank you.
Well, before we get too far into things, tell us about Beacon Wealth. How are you serving folks?
Oh man, we help individuals sleep better at night. And we do that by using proven financial strategies that are designed to obviously reduce financial frustration and give them peace of mind. We're helping them retire. We're helping them stay retired.
So, how did you get into this line of work? What drew you to this crowd?
It's an interesting question, Lee. The reality of it is, I've been intrigued by finance all my life. So when I was young, but old enough to understand the economy and old enough to know what was going on, I noticed one thing about, my family's parties, right? All my relatives, they were in the education system. They were teachers. They worked in the administrative offices at schools and so on and so forth. So out here in New Jersey, educators have something that most people don't have, right? They have a pension, and they knew that, no matter what was going on in the economy, no matter what was happening in the world, who was president, whether we had a president or not, they didn't really care, because every third Thursday of the month, they knew that there was going to be a check waiting for them when they retired. So, that really intrigued me, right? They had certainty in a world that was completely uncertain. And that's really what drew me to this business. I mean, that's how I approach my clients. That's how I approach, our firm's philosophy. I'm looking to create certainty in an uncertain world and give them peace of mind that every third Thursday of the month, whether they had a pension or have a pension or not, they're going to have a check waiting for them. And if I could do that, makes me a happy man.
So now, have you had to make any adjustments because of the economic environment we're in, where historically you've been able to rely on certain kind of like bonds where there were fixed interest or things like that, and now when the interest rates are so low, it's kind of pushing more risk into most people's portfolios. Has that been a challenge for you, or is that even accurate in your world?
No, completely accurate. I mean, interest rates are so low, and certain, income generated from bonds obviously it follows suit, right? It's low. So yeah, I mean, times have changed, and quite frankly, for the foreseeable future, times are going to continue to change. So we've adapted, and the investment world has kind of adapted with it, right? I mean, there are vehicles out there that, while they may be slightly more risky than a bond, it's not going to be anything of dramatic substance. And, and they generate a pretty decent level of income, So, I mean, we've definitely adapted. We've made some changes to some of the vehicles that we utilize. And then we also, as a firm, we also run a pretty unique strategy to us, right? I mean, and it's not like we built it. It's not anything new. I mean, we're not trying to reinvent the wheel, but there's just not a lot of firms out there that utilize this type of strategy to generate retirement income, mainly because it is labor intensive. There is some work that goes on behind the scenes, and there is some activity within the accounts. And unfortunately, our business has really gotten to the point where, it's just all about how many assets you can gather, right? And then they delegate asset management elsewhere. While we do some of that at our firm, we take a somewhat of a different approach, and we manage the assets in-house, and we utilize it, an income strategy that, again, it's not going to deliver a high level of risk, but will deliver a higher level of income. So it's just adapting with the times.
Now, when you're working with your clients that are approaching retirement, and like you mentioned earlier, like you go from this accumulation period, right, where you're just trying to accumulate as much wealth as possible, and then they're transitioning, though, to the deaccumulation of the spending of those funds. How much of your work is kind of this strategy where you're putting in place, okay, this is how we're going to handle the next 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 years financially, but also mentally you have to kind of understand you were doing this thing you were doing for many years, and now you're not going to be doing that anymore, but you still have to do something, right? Like you can't, like, no matter what everybody dreams maybe while they're thinking about retirement, I'll be at the beach, I'll play golf, I'll be fishing, I'll be doing all these leisure activities. But at least in the people I've been talking to, that sounds good on paper, but the reality of that isn't for a lot of people.
Yeah, you're not kidding. I mean, and it even starts at a young age, right? I mean, it's not just individuals nearing retirement that have those, that where we have those conversations. In fact, it was just on what today is Friday, right? So it was just Wednesday night. I had a conversation with a 35-year-old who's running a very successful real estate appraising business. Here's someone who's young, and conceptually, you may not even think that they're thinking about retirement at this stage, but I'm having these conversations with them about what does retirement look like for them? What is their dreams? What are their goals? What are their objectives? Just paint me a picture. And honestly, the client's response was, does anybody even ever retire anymore? So we have those conversations, on a daily basis. Retirement looks different for everybody. Some people may just want to sit on the beach. Some people may want to play golf, but there's a lot of other individuals that may want to do something else. Right. And that just becomes, all right, let's talk about really what were their hobbies throughout life? What did they want to do that they never have done before? And can we monetize that? Can we turn that into a business? That those conversations are something that we talk about with clients, because again, there's an emotional change. On top of that, I mean, we take, call us crazy, call us, nuts, but we like to think that we're changing the status quo. And, we talk a lot about franchises with clients. Why not? I mean, if you retire from what you did 20 or 30 years and you had a passion, or maybe you had a dream, or, maybe you always said throughout your life, man, what if I owned one of these businesses that are just, that basically just run themselves? Well, let's talk about it, and that's where we go.
Now, but that helps you become a better advisor, right? You have to know how they want the story to end in order to help them get there. And some of this kind of softer things, this emotional things, this legacy things are really at the heart of what brings meaning to their life and brings a legacy they're proud of.
Certainly. I mean, you have got to understand, and you have got to know your clients. I mean, we have a high touch service model that touches our clients over 20 times a year. So we tend to say that our clients become our friends, and we're really trying to learn the ins and outs of who they are, what makes them tick, and really where do they want to be. And without that, we're just a commodity. If we don't really understand who our clients are, and prove that to them and utilize that in our approach to generate a successful outcome for them, we're just a commodity. We're just one of the low cost brokerage houses that is managing money. And that's not who we're trying to be. We're really trying to understand who our clients are and what makes them tick. And, and then we provide the roadmap to get them to that end goal.
I think that's an important distinction that firms today really have to have. You're exactly right. There's right now with technology, you don't need, in a lot of cases, somebody to kind of manage your finances. A lot of people can just go online, find an online resource, plug in some risk tolerance, parameters, and this is going to do everything in an impersonal way. So if your firm is impersonal, you can easily be replaced by software. Yeah. But if you're high touch and you're caring and you're reaching out and you're asking challenging questions and you're providing value, like you're saying, almost 24 times at least a year in terms of communication, now you become a trusted advisor. Now you're really actively involved in their life and invested in their success, whatever that success looks like.
Yeah, 100%. I can't agree more. And when we try and be as forward looking as possible, right? And we started taking this approach a couple of years ago because we saw the writing on the wall. I'll go out on a limb here and I'll say maybe it's 5 years, maybe it's 10 years, but there's going to be a time in our business where we're not paid for managing assets. We're paid for managing a life, right? If you look at it as a sports analogy, right? We're going to be paid for becoming the quarterback, in our clients' lives, or essentially their personal CFO. The managing of the assets, that's going to be free, and we'll get there. The industry's not there yet, but you're already starting to see it with some of these houses, these brokerage houses that are offering no cost, free trades. We're going to get there at some point or another. And just like you would pay your attorney, just like you would pay your accountant, we're basically going to be compensated, for developing and quarterbacking and executing, the client's financial affairs and their financial life. And you can't do that without understanding who they are and what makes them tick. It's just, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it.
Well, kudos to you and your team for being this kind of forward thinking, because a lot of people try to hang on to the status quo as long as they can and then just almost try to run out the clock. You're kind of taking a risk in having this kind of thinking and engaging your clients in this way and letting them know, what could be ahead. But the bottom line is if you keep providing value, they're not going to get rid of you because you're indispensable at that point.
Yeah, look, naturally, one of the questions that comes up with any potential new client that we may be talking to is, okay, what does this all cost? What are the fees? And my first response is before I even really disclose and discuss, the fees that are involved are, understand this, the cost and the fee is only going to be an issue in the absence of value. I say that to everybody. If we're not providing value and justifying what we charge our clients, then again, we are just a commodity and we will be replaced. I could count. I've been in business now, I guess, 20 years going on 20 years in January. I could count on my hands the amount of business that we lost because of fees, and again, the fees only become an issue in the absence of value. So it's a great statement that you make and it rings true, and it's 100% accurate in our business.
So now, do you have any tips for our listeners that are kind of, maybe they haven't had a professional advise them before, and maybe they thought I could do it myself and it was fun or whatever, but life gets in the way. It gets too complicated. There's a lot of moving parts and people don't know what they don't know until they're really in there. But any advice for that person that is about to hire maybe their first advisor? What are some of the things they should be looking for, and what are some of the things they should be avoiding?
Look, if they're looking, if they're just about to start looking for an advisor, right, they got to do their due diligence. They got to explore, who those advisors are and what's their background, how long they've been in business, and I think one of the most important factors is there some sort of common ground between you and between the advisor and you, Mr. Client, right? If you could find an advisor that you have common ground with, that you relate to, that you guys have, similar interests or have, may have similar lifestyles or whatever the case is, that in and of itself is going to prove, more beneficial in the long run when it comes to working with that advisor. If if you have difference of opinions, if maybe you completely have different lifestyles, you come from two different generations, and you don't understand one another, it makes it difficult, So I think one of the biggest tips is do your due diligence. And that doesn't just mean what's their education background and how many clients do they have and how much of assets do they manage. It actually means, learning about the advisor, just like the advisor should be learning about you. And then, that on top of that, the only thing I could say is this, and it's not, Vanguard, everybody knows who Vanguard is, right? Vanguard is not in the business of advisors. You're not going to find Vanguard advisors. They're a direct entity where you can go to them and open up an account without the use of an advisor. Their claim to fame in the past has always been their low cost, right? So they did a study, and you could Google this study. It's called Advisors Alpha. And in that study, I mean, it is it's done by some individuals with doctorate degrees, supposedly guys that are arguably much smarter than we are. And they come out and they say, look, working with an advisor versus not working with an advisor over time will generate somewhere in the vicinity of 300 basis points of alpha every year. So that's 3% of advantageous return to the client every year. I mean, that's a huge number. If you're talking 5 years, 10 years, 20, 30, maybe even a 40 plus year retirement, that is a huge number to be, and a huge opportunity cost to miss out on. So the earlier that you start, the better you will be. Just like anything with investing, it's all about time versus dollar amounts. And again, I can't say it enough. I mean, Vanguard is not in the business of promoting advisors. But they are coming out and saying a qualified advisor doing the right thing for you will significantly benefit you in the long run.
Right. And having that expert on the team is going to protect you from yourself, because a lot of this is challenging. And especially you throw in turbulence in the marketplace, you need someone there with a steady hand that's not going to freak out because they've seen it before.
Yeah. It's, I mean, exactly right. Classic example, is this past year. I mean, look, and I said to, I mean, listen, earlier this year, late February, early March, everybody knows what happened, obviously, and everybody knows what happened in the market. And I would be coming home from the office and saying to my wife, man, I don't, I feel like I'm more of a counselor than an advisor for a month, right? Because, it's talking clients off the ledge. The advisor essentially protects them from doing something that they can't or they shouldn't be doing. And look, the reality of it is most consumers, they panic, and they panic and then they do something they shouldn't be doing. So if you look at this year as an example, we had the fastest sell-off in market history. The Dow, the S&P, the NASDAQ, they were all down over 30% in 30 days, less than 30 days. But we've also had the fastest rebound in history. So if an individual was not working with an advisor and they just sold everything and went to cash, man, they missed out on an awful lot of money over the past 6 months. So, that's really where, the advisor provides the value that they should be delivering.
Right. Well, that's where those 3 basis points come in. They come in Absolutely. From moves like that. I mean, that's 10 years worth of basis points that they just saved the client.
Absolutely.
Now,
Absolutely.
In your work, do you have a specialty? Like you mentioned that your folks were education. Do you work with a lot of people in education, or do you kind of take clients from all different industries?
So look, I mean, we do take clients from all different industries. The majority of our clients are going to be small business owners. And, and when I say small business owners, I'm talking, businesses with less than 50 employees. That's the majority of our business by and large. And we work with them both on the individual and on the corporate side as well. If you want to talk about niche marketplace, ironically, no, believe it or not, even though my entire family went, I'm like the lone outcast that went into the business world. My entire family was in the education system. I actually, while I do have educators as clients, it's certainly not the bulk of our business. I work hand in hand, and I work an awful lot with the music and entertainment industry. So that's developed into a very interesting niche for me and our firm. But we certainly take clients from all industries. We're not, we certainly don't discriminate in that respect.
So if somebody wanted to learn more, have a more substantive conversation with you or somebody on your team, what's the best way to get a hold of you? Like, what's the website?
Website is www.b as in beacon, W as in wealth, M as in management, G as in group, L as in limited, P as in partnership.com, www.bwmglp.com.
Good stuff, Anthony. Thank you so much for sharing your story today. We really appreciate it.
I enjoyed being here. Thank you so much for having me.
All right. This is Lee Cantor. We will see you all next time on Retirement Tips Radio.
Retirement Tips Radio is brought to you by Business RadioX, the voice of business in your community. Currently serving over 25 markets, the Business RadioX network is growing fast. We're teaming up with retired execs and established entrepreneurs to support and celebrate local business leaders. If you'd like to make additional income while making a difference, discover more at brxteam.com.